Welcome to 10 Minute Magic, a bi-weekly format covering news in the world of Magic the Gathering in 10 minutes or less. I am Joseph Dunlap, and before we get started, I need to make an announcement for our listeners. Ben Cotty, co-founder and fellow host of 10 Minute Magic for the past 6 months, has stepped down from the podcast. Ben was an instrumental part of the project, and I would like to thank him for helping get 10 Minute Magic off the ground. This week, I am joined by a co-host who has helped out with 10 Minute Magic in the past.
Hello, I'm Joe Butcher, who will hopefully be filling the very large shoes that Ben has left me. I wish him the best in all he does outside of 10 Minute Magic, and this is what's been going on in Magic the Gathering this week. After 6 rounds of draft, 5 rounds of modern, and 6 rounds of standard playing against the top of the field, Brian Braun-Duin has risen to the top to take home the World Championship trophy. BBD began his journey by earning the title of Grand Prix Master, which clinched a spot at Worlds. This was especially important as Brian Braun-Duin fell short of earning platinum status at Pro Tour Eldritch Moon, where he finished in the top 64 with a 9-6-1 record. BBD reached the top 4 of Worlds undefeated in Constructive, 3-0-1 in Modern with Bant Eldrazi, and 4-0 in Standard with Bant Humans, making up for an even 3-3 record in Draft. Coming into the World Championships, BBD considered himself an underdog, squeaking in with one of the 3 Masters qualifications and rubbing elbows with Platinum Pros and Halls of Famers. His triumph at Worlds is a victory for Grand Prix grinders everywhere, and may serve as a launching point into a career of consistent finishes at the pro level.
Wizards introduces the Masterpiece Series cards. On September 12th, Mark Rosewater released information on a new set of cards beginning in the Kaladesh block for the foreseeable future that follows the same concept as the Zendikar Expeditions, which will be part of the Masterpiece Series. For the Kaladesh sets, this will be known as Kaladesh Inventions, and will exist at a higher rarity level than Mythic Rare. These cards will always be reprints of cards, a few of which might be borrowed directly from the set, such as the Kaladesh Gearhulks, and the design will tie into the theme of the block they are released in, which for Kaladesh is artifacts. Because of the rarity of the cards, we can expect, much like the Expedition lands, for them to be quite pricey due to the odds of finding one being 1 in every 144 boosters, or a ratio of 1 to 2,160. The number of Masterpiece cards available may fluctuate by set, but we can expect roughly 50 per block, with Kaladesh blocks split into 30 for the upcoming set and 24 predicted for Aether Revolt. For all of you that enjoy different language cards, Masterpieces will only be printed in English, however, they will be available in non-English boosters.
Ajani on Kaladesh? Currently, there is some talk about Ajani arriving the new plane of Kaladesh. He was first revealed in the spoiler for Impeccable Timing, where he appears in the artwork and the flavor text, which refers to Ajani as an enormous leonin wielding a twin-headed axe. Recent theories concerning his arrival on Kaladesh focus on Ajani's journey to find Tezzeret. He first learns of Tezzeret on Phyrexia from Elspeth Tyrell, and went on a series of plane walks to find him. It will be interesting to see where Ajani will fit into the storyline here. According to the flavor text of Impeccable Timing, we are led to believe that Baral, Chandra's longtime antagonist, has laid a trap for Chandra, and Ajani arrives out of nowhere to save her. Hopefully we will learn more of the story in Ajani's relationship with the Gatewatch over the coming weeks.
Reigning World Champion no longer automatically qualified for Worlds. In a Twitter response by Hélène Bergeau to her organized play announcement on August 2nd, it was revealed that the current World Champion will not have an automatic seeding in the next year's World Championship. The reason behind this is because other sports have similar policies, and it increases and reinforces the legitimacy of tournaments by creating a level playing field for all professionals. Her post also goes on to explain that because Worlds awards players with so many pro points, it actually provides a springboard for the next Worlds. Also, the pro point system will be changing so that pro points are only earned on every game won after their third. This means that pro points can only be won in the 4th round of a Swiss tournament and later. Due to this, representation of high-quality players over an extended series of Pro Tours and GPs should improve. This year, the following slots qualified for Worlds. All Pro Tour winners of the past season, the reigning World Champion, the top 4 Pro Point leaders from North America, the top 3 from Europe, the top 3 from Asia Pacific, the top 2 from Latin America, the Player of the Year, GP Master, mtgUK Champion, Midseason Master, Outstanding Hall of Famer, Draft Master, and Constructed Master. If a player earned more than one qualification, one of these slots would free up, and any free slots would be filled with at-large Pro Point leaders. Next year, the following slots will qualify for Worlds. All Pro Tour winners of the past season, the MTGO Champion, Standard Master, Draft Master, North American Champion, European Champion, Asia Pacific Champion, Latin American Champion, and 13 at-large slots, which are now labeled as top-ranked players. Conspicuously missing from the list are the Grand Prix Master and the reigning World Champion. The primary reason for eliminating the GP Master title was the sheer amount of traveling that players had to undergo during the GP season to clinch the title. As Alain Bergeau also pointed out, the reigning world champion will always have an edge for the following season, and the amount of pro points earned at Worlds could easily result in another qualification. This new policy sparked some controversy on social media as newly crowned Brian Braun-Duin took issue with the qualification restructuring. Not only was he the reigning champion, but he also qualified with one of the special Masters slots. Additionally, 3 of the top 4 of Worlds reached Worlds with special qualifications. A handful of pro players, primarily PVDDR, Ben Stark, and Eric Froelich, took to Twitter to chime in that slots such as GP Master were less legitimate than at large, even arguing that the quality of play on camera would potentially suffer if special qualifications were allowed at Worlds. Notably, the primary difference between the GP Master slot and a Platinum player who qualifies based on total pro points is where those points are earned. The Grand Prix Master title is conferred on the player with the most points earned at a Grand Prix level, while a pro player with minimal GP attendance might earn more pro points overall because of the sheer number of pro points awarded at the Pro Tour level. As a result, many assumed that pro players who were against the GP Master qualification slot were in favor of Pro Tour grinders getting higher preference than Grand Prix grinders. BBD took issue with this argument, pointing out that his victory at Worlds was proof that the GP Master slot was a legitimate qualification. In turn, the counter-argument was that players are not invited to events based on the potential to win, but rather their achievements prior to the event. To the contrary, BBD and his supporters shot back that the fact that Braun-Duin won the tournament was proof that the GP Master slot was as legitimate as any other, and the GP Master race made for an interesting narrative. Ultimately, this argument came to no real conclusion. What we can learn from the decision from Wizards of the Coast is that a greater emphasis is being put on the World Championship as the culmination of the Pro Tour season, rather than the competitive season as a whole. Grand Prix grinders will have to earn their Pro Tour invitations and progress from there to some strong Pro Tour finishes in order to have a shot at attending the World Championship. Coupled with the coming season's policy on Grand Prix appearance fees, which are limited to 5 per season to cut down travel fatigue, there appears to be a dramatic shift in the way in which the Pro Tour and GPs are handled in the scope of the professional season. Namely, the Grand Prix is a launching point into the promotional tour, and the Pro Tour is the gateway to Worlds.
Kaladesh full spoiler released. The full list of cards for Kaladesh has been released and has brought with it some interesting cards relating to the usage and usefulness of artifacts as its main theme. For reference to those who do not follow the storyline, Kaladesh is Chandra's Aru plane. With such an emphasis on artifacts, it will be interesting to see if any cards find their way into the Eternal formats in the form of affinity decks or ones along the same line. The full spoiler release heralds the penultimate nail in the coffin for certain cards in the current standard, with such cards cycling out as Jace, Vryn's Prodigy, Collected Company, and the Painlands, with the incredibly strong deck Bant Company losing its value engine and potentially suffering a truly crippling blow. This gives the option for other decks to come to the fore as competitors for strongest deck, and therefore expect a large amount of heavy aggression in the first few weeks of the release.
We now move on to recent Manaleak articles. The recent articles for Manaleak that we would like to highlight this week are 4 Great Pauper Decks to Try Out for Under £30 by Brad Pierce, which suggests some actually quite strong decks that look appealing, both to people who like the Pauper metagame, as well as brewers out there with a brew of Brad's own devising.
Personally, reading the article, it looked at the original archetypes as well as pulling out an interesting, almost thematic deck that provided a large scope of what you can expect if you were playing the Pauper metagame, such as he gives example of a control deck, a combo deck, a very heavy aggro deck, and then actually a reanimation deck, which was very strong earlier on in the Pauper metagame. The second article that we'd like to point out is the article Magic the Gathering Spells versus Creatures is Standard Balanced by our very own Joseph Dunlap, which delves into the variety of spells and creatures played in the current standard meta. This is actually a really good article for people who don't want to do the maths themselves and actually pull apart the metagame. For example, I'm quite lazy in this aspect, so Joseph's done a really, really good job in sort of breaking down what makes the decks and actually writing it really, really clearly.
I was actually flattered to find that the article picked up attention from Channel Fireball in their weekly updates, and they also gave props towards a very measured and thought out and well-researched counter-argument to Mark Rosewater's Blogatog response recently, which was in response to a question asking why it was that red and blue had such a low presence in the current standard metagame, and they attributed it to the imbalance of spells versus creatures, to which Mark Rosewater said, well, out of the top 5 cards, 3 of those are spells, and he listed Collected Company, Dromoka's Command, and Languish. So I sought out to dismantle that argument. I crunched the numbers, I found out what comprises each deck, and I think you'll find it a very interesting read, finding out how is it that each of the popular decks wins the game, and where is the balance tipping towards in Standard.
Thank you very much for listening this week. If we missed anything you wanted to hear more about, dive deeper into, or want to let us know how much you enjoy the show, then please leave us a comment on social media or find the text form of this episode on manaleak.com/mtgUK, and we will endeavour to respond to you all. You can find Joseph on Twitter
at Joseph_Dunlap,
and myself at Zonal Texas 1.
You are the most British sounding Texan I've ever heard.
Thank you very much. It's a very old account name that's just kind of stuck. Until next time, thank you very much for listening.
See you guys later.